This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Let's talk with Grant Hall right now here on halftime. You hear Dusty Baker. I don't really know what else Dusty's supposed to say, Grant. They didn't see it. If they would have seen it, they'd have changed it as far as Lance McCullers was concerned. But you could tell. And Pedro Martinez made a point of it on the MLB Network postgame show. There was a difference in where McCullers had his hands on breaking balls and on fastballs. So the Phillies saw it. I guarantee the Astros coaching staff sees it now.
Well, if anybody should know about stuff like that, it's Houston, right? I mean, I think in his previous start, McCullers threw 24 consecutive curveballs. And for part of the game last night, I was listening to the radio, and I think it might have been I can't remember who said it, but that he had not really thrown a fastball for a strike at a certain point. So it's kind of, I remember one time, Phil, Will Clark was in town watching I think it's a Legion game. His little brother was playing, and it was during one of the baseball strikes. And Will was sitting up there in the right field area watching the game in Fayetteville, and he said after about 2 pitches, he said, "I've got their signs." He was so proud of the fact that he stole these kids' signs. I mean, it's been part of baseball forever.
That's exactly right, and that's why I think a lot of us look. And I'm like sort of pulling for the Astros in this, but you're like, that's right. That's how this is supposed to be done, Houston, by noticing little differences in a pitcher's delivery, or noticing just a tiny little difference in the way the pitcher holds his glove, not by using your video system to relay the pitch that's being called by the catcher to guys with a trash can or to somebody that's wired up. Like the Astros did it. That's the whole cheating aspect of this. If they just were able to figure things out the way that ball players and managers have been figuring it out for over a century, we wouldn't have been so pissed off.
And by the way, probably a little noticed part of this game was that Ryan Stanek got 2 strikeouts on 7 total pitches. So he continues to be kind of unhittable this year.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. What do you think of this Philadelphia crowd? Philadelphia is an intense place for anything. Look, I grew up across the state from Philadelphia. I got no love for the city of Philly. It's practically a different state, but I can appreciate a place that's sort of been pent up as far as the excitement about that sport specifically, and they've had other teams with reasons to root. But that ballpark, Citizens Bank Ballpark, looks like a powder keg, and it really looks. That crowd right now is a reason why I think the Phillies could sweep this thing in the next 2 games.
Phil, a long time ago, I went to the Penn Relays, and during that time, there were I got to see a couple of baseball games between Philadelphia and the Giants when Bonds was playing and doing his thing. And there was an usher who told us, the photographer and I were there from the newspaper, and he said that when the Eagles played at home games, the stadium actually shook. He said that's how much the fans get into it there. And of course they've been fairly starved for something like this for a while, and it's crazy, isn't it? The Eagles are off to this start they are, and now I guess will they both be playing tomorrow night because of the rainout situation? That's and everything? Right. Now
That's right, Matt. It was all going to work out to where the Eagles and the Phillies didn't play on the same day, but the rainout screwed that thing up.
I saw that. What do you think about is the pressure on the Astros now after that? Their first 2 series, they lose 0 games. Their 4th World Series in 6 years, and now they're down 2-1 to a team that didn't win 90 regular season games. How do you think that feeling is over there? You think they're feeling the pressure?
Yeah, and they're probably thinking if they can just get back to Houston, they've got a great chance. I saw a sign last night, Matt, that said, "Houston, you have a problem,"
right.
Which I thought was pretty clever. But it's getting to be kind of fun here, and I'm just hoping a lot of eyeballs get on this thing. I was somewhere last week, and I was eating somewhere, watching the game. And when Bryce Harper hit a 2-run homer, remember that he hit a 2-run homer. I think they were down a run, weren't they, in the 8th inning, which to me was kind of the key blow of the whole postseason so far. And there was also football on at the same time. And I think I was the only person in there out of 500 TVs watching what was happening in the baseball game, because it was in the midst of all this football. But it still is very exciting, and I picked the Phils. I call them the Phils. Phil, do you remember when they were the Phils in headlines and stuff to shorten Phillies?
Yeah. I think that's been a thing for a long time. It's just, you can easily take out 3 or 4 letters. That's
right.
Why I do. I take out 3 every time. I call myself Phil.
U.S. Reed wasn't really U.S. His middle initial was not S, but a sports writer named Frank Lightfoot in Pine Bluff. One night they were on deadline, and of course, U.S. played for Pine Bluff before coming to Arkansas and hitting all those amazing game-winning shots. But just quickly, Lightfoot said, that just shortened it. Just put U.S. Reed on there, and it kind of stuck. It was kind of cool, U.S. Reed, and that's how that came to happen.
Huh, how nicknames are born. I did not know that about that. See, that's good stuff, Matt. That's why we have Grant on. He knows these things.
You see momentum. You see the momentum a lot in the Ryder Cup, I think, and you see players start to get tight. You see players start to play loose. That's what I wonder tonight if you see Houston come out there tight at all, because Philly's just playing loose and having fun, and they're at home. So it's going to be an interesting night tonight. Who's on the bump, Phil? Who's starting pitching for these two teams?
Oh, I got to,
because everything got messed up. Noah Syndergaard was going to go, and then Suarez, man, he was throwing some stuff too.
Aaron Nola back on the mound for the Phillies, and he got racked for 5 runs first couple of innings, but he was able to finish 5, which turned out to be pretty big. Christian Javier for the Astros. The difference here in this postseason, Grant, you see the Phillies bullpen, like their starting pitching's been good. Their bullpen has been unhittable. That's the difference.
I think last night 4 guys pitched an inning each and gave up a total of 2 hits. And of course, when it's 7-0, maybe it's easier to pitch. But I think Nola will be really tough tonight. And you're right, Matt. 87 wins, but I think all these gradations of playoffs now make it harder for the best team or two to. I think I may have said this last week, Phil, but the time was when if you won your league, you're in the World Series, and now you got to keep. The Dodgers, what were they? 22 games better than the Padres, and then they're not even here. And the Yankees had a pretty good year; they're not there, and it's just Philadelphia's the hot team right now, and with a tremendous home advantage, as you mentioned.
I'm going to get your thoughts on this upcoming month for Arkansas football. October, a lot of travel. 3 straight losses, but you were able to get back, get that momentum back with back-to-back wins. And right now with the offense clicking the way they are, what are you seeing in these next 3 games? Like, we're all assuming a win over Liberty, and I think you beat Liberty, but I think that's a good team. And then, coming into the season, we all looked at Ole Miss and LSU as you got them at home. Arkansas will probably beat them both. And right now, man, those are 2 teams that are playing some good football. LSU, really, really good right now.
Yeah, and what caught my attention on the first playoff thing last night, was that LSU and Ole Miss are 10 and 11. So if Arkansas could happen to beat both of those 2 teams, then they're going to be pretty high in this thing by the end of the year. It's too bad this isn't one of those years where they got 12 teams instead of 4, like, Matt, y'all were talking about earlier. But, they got a chance to do some good. I think as long as K.J. Jefferson is upright, and they did limit his throws again yesterday in practice. He's been banged up a little bit this year. He seems indestructible, but he's a guy. Sam Pittman said last week, might have been on his radio show, he said he's Superman, he's our leader, and that's certainly true on offense. Arkansas does have defensive issues, I think, but I was interested to read this morning that this Quincy McAdoo of Clarendon, Arkansas, could be a factor at cornerback. He's 6'2", 192. He played the position in high school, and it looks like he might start the game or at least play a whole lot this week.
Yeah, I think Rocket Sanders has really been. You look at KJ and what he's able to do. What does he have? 15 touchdowns and 1 interception, and he's spreading the ball around. But man, Rocket Sanders last couple of weeks has just really been. It just helps as a quarterback when you got a running back that's getting 8, 9, 10 yards a carry. It just helps make your read so much easier.
Does it seem to you, Matt, that in some of the beginnings of these games he hasn't been as fast as in others? Like I saw he changed his cleats last week. You know,
he's definitely a funky runner. Like you know those Miami backs that you had, Willis McGahee, Clinton Portis, that kind of were real hesitant and kind of get in there and just finding the cracks and crannies and stuff. So he's definitely got that a bit. His wiggle is different than the other running backs. And he wears them down. You can't arm tackle the guy, and so they get tired. And that offensive line weighing on you for 2-3 quarters, and then all of a sudden, man, he breaks a couple late in the game.
Yeah, I was watching this Quinshawn Judkins of Ole Miss last week, who I think should maybe still be a senior in high school, and he went for 200 plus. There's a guy I'm thinking in terms now of Heisman vote coming up, guys, and I'm not so sure that Hooker is that much better than KJ Jefferson. What do you think?
Well, I think he has a lot of talent around him as far as Hooker. He's a little older.
Right.
We were talking about that earlier about the receivers they have at Tennessee. Now, I don't think they're as good as that LSU receiver core that when Joe Burrow was there. Those guys, I mean, and who knows? Those guys went on to have careers in the NFL and are still playing. But Tennessee, kind of the schedule worked out for him this year. I would say Hooker's better than KJ right now if I was to give an honest assessment of everything. But do you think you put KJ on that Tennessee team? And do you think they're still – I guess that would be the question. You think they're undefeated if KJ's up there?
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting that they're number one in this thing. You know, it shows that sometimes I think the media poll can just go week to week reacting to what happens that week. But they made a pretty convincing case. And then also you look at Georgia's schedule. What was it? Except for one, their opponents are something like 22 and 26.
Oh, they hadn't played anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and then even some of the like Ohio State's defensive numbers are pretty convincing. I think they're giving up 10 points a game or something. So it's interesting to see what the committee does compared with the other polls.
Grant, we'll leave it there. I appreciate you always hopping on with us on these Wednesdays. Enjoy the rest of the World Series, Saturday's football, and we'll get back with you next week.
All right, thanks. See you guys.
Appreciate you, Grant. Grant Hall here on Halftime every Wednesday. I think part of the reason that the media poll is different than the committee poll is just simply brand name. Tennessee's brand is not the same as Georgia. They weren't at the top of the list at the start of the season. Georgia was near the top of the list at the start of the season. And, you know, when the people that are making the votes were the ones that were writing the stories early in the season, I think they're going to kind of stick to some of that story. Plus, being a defending national champion in Georgia, brand name, unfortunately, has something to do with those votes. I wonder if it will once the committee comes around. When you look at the makeup of the committee that's voting, the one that really matters, it's pretty interesting. Group of Five's got a lot of representation.
Football is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your football betting needs this season. You'll find the latest odds, matchup info, player news, and game trends. And as your continued source for all sports wagering info, BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events like MLB, MMA, tennis, boxing, and even golf. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 100% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts.